Hello, coaches. Today, what we're going to explore is how you change somebody's belief. Now, in NLP training, we like to teach you really in-depth conceptual ideas on what is a belief and how you change a belief so that the client gets the outcome that they desire. If you've got a belief that it's hard to make money, then the evidence of that will continue to show up. More evidence of why you have to work so hard to get money. And yet, when you're able to change your beliefs, instead of it being hard to make money, there's a new choice, there's a new belief, there's a new possibility that money comes to me easily, that the universe is providing everything that I need easily and effortlessly, or whatever the belief is that you want to have. And that can be within relationships, business, wealth, health, anything that comes to mind. When you've got the belief that it's easy to make money, then the willpower isn't there anymore. It doesn't have to be hard. Now, in the NLP training and NLP practitioner training, before we get into the in-depth conceptual ideas and the energy of how to change a belief, we bring it to the practical. We bring it to everyday experience so that when you know that this process works with food, then when we get up to the belief change with, then the evidence is there to match it. It's like, if this works so well with food, then of course it's going to change with the invisible stuff that we don't have physical evidence for. So what I'm going to go through today is the submodality belief change known as like to dislike. And if you think about a food that you maybe want to get rid of out of your diet, then what we do is we do this submodality belief work to change the qualities of the thing that you like to something completely revolting. And in fact, you come out the other end just like, oh my gosh, I don't, if you're somebody who loves chocolate, you could do this work and come out the other side going, what was I thinking? Why would I ever put that in my mouth? And so it's a fun part of the NLP training, but it proves that this works when it comes to money beliefs and things that are a little bit more invisible in the actual process. So let's get started. Let's check out the slides that I've got here for those visual learners. Before we get into the steps, I want to talk about submodalities. Now, if you're familiar with NLP, you'll understand that we all perceive the world quite differently. There's going to be some people who are more visual, some people more feeling-based, some people more auditory, sound-based, and some people that are far more analytical. And we respect that the visual people are looking for things in their world. Is it bright? Is it dim? Is it fuzzy? Is it clear? And the kinesthetic people, the feeling people, like, does it feel warm? Does it feel cold? Does it feel smooth? Does it feel hard? And again, the auditory people, is it loud? Is it soft? Is it squeaky? Is it blissful? We recognize that people store and code their experience very differently depending on the rep system that they're using. And of course, we all experience the world differently. While siblings may have been exposed to the exact same upbringing, the way that they store and code their reality will be different. So this is my dog Daisy, who's having an absolute field day at my grandparents' farm. And she's just like, yeah, hang out with the cows and nature. Whereas Morris was just, he was gone. He was not interested. He was completely freaked out by the cows. So it's a silly example, but we want to take the seriousness out of NLP and bring in the fun so your mind gets it. So what is the difference between somebody's experience of, really enjoying being on the farm versus somebody being scared? Well, it's due to our five senses and how we take in the information from the outside world and how our mind interprets it. So how we see, hear, feel, the choices that we make based on what we're exposed to in the outside world. As a quick example here, we've got the picture of pizza. Now, one side, hopefully, if you love pizza, will seem moreish, and it's sort of like, oh, yeah, like the colors, the texture, the richness of it. Your taste buds start to water. Compared to the submodalities or the shift in the visual component there, where it's black and white, it's a bit dull. It's sort of like, take it or leave it. This is a very quick example of what we're doing here with storing and coding our information. Quick picture there of me and my daughter again on the farm, and the color, the vividness. There's an alluring memory that gets inspired compared to the black and white. It's there, but it's not as intense. And in fact, with the submodality work, even just shrinking down the picture, it makes the experience different. So one that may be familiar to you, the picture of money. What choices are you making about money? Are you allowing and inviting it in because it's big and bright and you want more of it? Or have you got like blind spots about money and living to other people's rules and beliefs about money that it's hard to work for and all the things? We can use the submodality belief work to shift your experience of it. So you're either inviting it in or using willpower and making it hard. So simply put, changing your submodalities will change your experience. And think of it like the old-fashioned TVs with the dials and the knobs. You can make the picture go brighter or more black and white. You can dial up the sound or you can dial it down, all the things. We can do this with our minds. So again, as you consciously change your submodalities, you're going to change your experience. Obviously, we can't change what actually happened in the past. If you've gone through a rough childhood with money and, dad gambled it all away, you can't change that. But what you can do is change how you store and code the memory so that you recognize that was dad's responsibility. Those were dad's choices, but I can respond differently to money or whatever the example is. In NLP, we know that the map is not the territory. And so the meaning and the interpretation that you're putting to your experience is unique to you. So if you've been trained in NLP, you'll be familiar with the submodality list. This is the list that narrows down people's rep systems into different submodalities. And we will elicit these in a belief change to recognize how somebody is storing their experience. So if you're looking at the visual rep system, the submodalities beneath that, is the picture black and white or color? Is it near or is it far? Is it bright or is it dim? Where is the location of the picture? Is it like to the left, to the right? The size of the picture? Am I in the picture? When I'm thinking about money, am I looking through my own eyes? Or do I see myself in the picture? Is the picture moving or still? Is it flat? Is it 3D? All the things. The submodalities is quite an extensive list. And this is a quick picture of mine, the difference between associated and disassociated. Are you looking through your own eyes? How does it sort of feel versus disassociated and seeing yourself in the image? This is an important piece when it comes to all of our NLP processes that we do. Because if you're working with somebody with trauma, you may recognize that instead of them being in the experience of their traumatic memories, they've disassociated. And that's probably a really good, healthy, sophisticated survival mechanism to ensure their survival. There's a whole nother NLP training for another day, but I just wanted to highlight that this particular component is important when it comes to NLP. It's not just a submodality. So thinking of the picture, is your picture of money, like, is it panoramic? Is it like just all the way around you? Or is it quite small and framed? And notice how your body responds differently. The submodalities of auditory, so the sounds, the location, the direction, is the sound booming out here and it's coming internal? Or is there this booming kind of, you can hear your heartbeat and it's coming out of you? Is the sound loud or soft? The duration, any uniqueness to the sound? And going into more NLP side of things, if you're not familiar with the auditory, the timbre, the qualityness, the quality or the distinctiveness, the tonality, is there any weight or amplification? If your client is auditory or if you're working as a sound coach, these things are going to be far more important to you than a visual person. And again, in trauma, when you're working with NLP with clients, we're listening out for the way the client describes the auditory submodalities, because possibly they've had a toxic experience in the past with a drunken uncle, and they can still recall, Christmas Day and the loudness and the way that chaos felt in their body, compared to doing some fun things in NLP to say, okay, well, notice your uncle, but make his voice small and insignificant like Mickey Mouse, and notice how your body responds differently to it. So now what choices are available to you now that he's not such a threat? But of course, we can use sound and some modalities in a more uplifting way. If you're working with somebody who has this dream for an abundant business and they want to be on stage, they want to train, then any future pacing, we're looking at dialing up the audience, dialing up the good things that they say to themselves, make it fun, make it vibrant to really build upon the intuitive abilities and the RAS, your reticular activation system, to draw in more of that. And then finally here with the submodalities, we've got the kinesthetic, so thinking about wanting that goal of lots of money, whatever it is, it's an easy one. The location, how do you feel about money? And is it feeling small or is it big? What's the intensity when you think of money? And is there any vibration, any pressure, any heat, any weight to that feeling when you think about money or you think about your goals? And so the touchy-feely people in the group, the huggers, the kinesthetic people, if you've got a client who's more kinesthetic based and you're doing the belief change work, you want to make sure you're really, really dialing up the feelings. Okay, so how did we go from that nice soft picture to this gross one? Well, in the submodality belief change work, like to dislike, we're looking at the way that somebody experiences something that they like, something that they don't like, and we're going to change the neurology so that the mind now codes the dislike to the thing that they want to get rid of out of their diet. Now, again, we're doing this so somebody has an experience to know that the way that they perceive the world can change. And if it can change with chips, imagine what it can change to your bank account, to your relationships, to your health. And in fact, I know one of my students or graduates who did NLP training with me, she had a client who was going to France and a little bit lactose intolerance, and said to this person, please help me reduce my desire to eat cheese. Like, the last thing I want to do is be sick on a holiday. And so they did this process of liking cheese to disliking, ensuring their great time on their trip. And of course, you can do this with food intolerances, and you can also do it the other way around. If your doctor has said, you need to eat more veggies and you don't like them, then you can do the same process, but in the opposite way. So let's get through these gross pictures. When I first learned like to dislike, I wanted to shift dim sims. I didn't want to eat dim sims anymore. And so we needed to find something that had a similar quality. So the neurology would just map across and shift dim sims to being something repulsive. I chose slugs. Still works on me. You'll still see me gag when I think of this. In other NLP trainings, we've done, students have said, like, I'm eating a box of Savoys every night, Claire, help me stop. And so we've changed it to something that they found revolting. Not necessarily what I find gross, but what they found gross. I think that was salami or something. Yeah, and then the other example there, corn chips to dried cockroaches. I can imagine if you're watching this video going, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? But I promise, well, it's going to get better. And we're just looking at the process of how the mind works. As I've already stated, yep, you can use this with food intolerances too. Change the bread that you're supposed to not eat. If you love, love, love bread and gluten, and then you found out that you're celiac, it's like you can do this process to take the willpower out of your diet. So if you're NLP trained, you'll need to get familiar with the mapping across terminology. And that's where you're mapping across the qualities of the like item to the dislike. So we're making a shift, we're mapping it across. Now, when I do like to dislike in the classroom, I like to ask the student to find the thing that they like and find something that has a similar qualities. I do know NLP trainers that say, like, well, if you want to get rid of donuts and you really don't like mushy peas, then yeah, you can map it across, it'll work. For me, I like it to be thorough. I like to make sure that we guarantee results. And so I'm going to go that one step further with the effort to find a food that's absolutely revolting that has a similar quality. So it's a much easier shift for the submodalities to drive across. So yeah, you wanted gross, and I must admit I had an absolute foul time trying to make this slide. There was no lunch after making this slide. And yeah, there's nothing elegant about this. If you're completely revolted by fried rats, slugs and snails, offal, tarantulas, moldy bread, rotten fish eyeballs, cod liver oil, even urine, like whatever you find revolting will work. But if you're doing this process, I would encourage you to look for something that someone can or would or have put in their mouth. So some people automatically say, I want to get rid of chocolate, I'll go to dog poo. You know, like, is that something that you've got a sensory experience of? You know what it's like to taste dog poo? Maybe you're brought up on a farm and it's sort of like, yeah, driving a motorbike, it would get splattered in your mouth. I know exactly what it tastes like. Or if it's just completely foreign, then don't. Things like I've heard people try to change alcohol to petrol, yeah, changing to laundry soap. Like if you've got that experience, that trust that you'd put it in your mouth, then go for it. And of course, being NLP coaches, you can set up the frame with your client and start to conversationally change already, get their whole unconscious mind ready for the shift, especially if you're working with weight loss clients. Let's say that you've got somebody who wants to get rid of tasty cheese. You've already recognized that, yeah, okay, we've got cheese. We're going to change it to earwax. You can conversationally make it gross and say, like, you know, the body doesn't like animal milk or animal products. And in fact, they pump the cows full of hormones and antibiotics to just fatten them up and fatten up the baby calves. So all of that really does create that chaos in the human body, increasing the mucus. And it's like you could feel it in the back of your throat. It's like your body's way of repelling that moist liquid from the animal. And oh, it really does take that willpower to swallow it, right? Whew, changing state. But yes, you can definitely set this up for your client to have that full experience. So what are the steps? Here we go. You ready for this? First, you obviously want to get in rapport. That's that number one step to perform the session, to be able to gain that trust, the client to drop down their walls and barriers and allow this process to work. But of course, this process for you is to learn the steps on how to change somebody's beliefs. It's a whole nother video for changing beliefs like I'm not good enough, I have to work hard for money, I'm too old, I'm too this. That's a different video. So to build the building blocks of what it's like to create the change, first you need to identify the food or drink that they like and the food that they wish to dislike. So let's play with the chips here. And well, I've already jumped ahead. Identify the dislike item. So like a bowl of dried maggots. Beautiful, lovely. You need to make sure that you ask the client's permission before you change this. Because if you ask this question and you get any hesitation, they want to change chocolate and it's sort of like, I want to get rid of chocolate, but not at Easter time and not at birthdays, da, 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 da. It's like, then this is not the process for that. So we need to check in to make sure that you get the results with your client. Is it okay for your unconscious mind to dislike chips and for you to be aware of it consciously? And you need a congruent yes. Then you need to calibrate the desire for the liked item. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, how much do you like chips? Now, this is an important measure of progress. You should be doing, saying shoulding all over myself as a model operator there. In an NLP process, it's important to ask this on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, how much is this a problem for you? Or how much do you like this? Or wherever your starting point is with the client, you need to calibrate because this activates their convincing strategy that when you get to the end of the session, instead of them being a little bit unsure, there are numbers here. It's sort of like we started off at a 10, you really, really liked chips, and now it's down to a 3, like, ooh, check that out. Like if this process works that easy, Can you imagine what it's like to create change when we're working with the really important stuff? Like, yay. So calibration is not for the coach, it's for the client, and it's to enable them to have that convincing strategy, a filter of their mind to say, yep, okay, this is working. If I can change this, I can change anything. All right, so so then we've got the visual. So when you think of chips, what picture comes to mind? And then you're going to elicit then you're going to elicit all of the visual submodalities. Then you're going to elicit all of the auditory submodalities. So when you think of chips, are there any sounds that are important? You know, hearing the chewing or hearing the oil cook, or I have no idea, but like, are there any sounds that are important? Maybe it's the family chatter. And then you elicit all of the auditory submodalities on your checklist. With the kinesthetic, when you think of chips, where do you feel it in the body? Like, is there a hunger? Is there a moorishness? Like, what are the feelings? And on your checklist, you want to check in all of the kinesthetic submodalities. And the last one there is the auditory digital. So what do you say to yourself when you think of chips? Okay, we've done one section of the submodality belief change. And then you want the client to break state. Think of the alphabet backwards. What's their postcode backwards? Their phone number backwards? What's for dinner? Can you smell popcorn? Anything there that breaks the state. This will enable the client to reset their mind. And so instead of going into the emotional side of the brain, you break state, you bring them back to the logical, and that creates an automatic shift. Okay, and then so with like to dislike, you've got your checklist as the coach, and you're going to go through that quite quickly with the dislike as well. So think of the like item. Oh, sorry, I start again. So you repeat all the submodalities for the dislike item, the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic. What do you say to yourself? And so you'll now have two separate lists, qualities for the like, qualities for the dislike. And now we map across. Now in the classroom, this often can feel a little bit confusing, and I do the whole demo and it's like, okay, that's how we do it. So you want to have the client think of the thing that they like, such as chips, and then you want to list out and read all of the disliked qualities. So when you think about the chips and they have the list of the maggots, it's sort of like, okay, hold on to the picture of the chips and notice that the picture of maggots, you wouldn't say maggots, but as an example, okay, so now move the picture to where the maggots was and now make the qualities of it bright or dim or move it back. Whatever the submodalities were, you want to hold on to the liked item and move it to the qualities of the disliked item. And what this will do is it'll shift their neural pathways so that instead of going chips, yum, they'll go chips, yuck. And of course, at the end, you want to calibrate that final piece to say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being totally moreish, how much do you like chips? And we're hoping for that number, or we're aiming for that number to go from a 10 down to 6, a 3, a 2, a 1, like we're aiming for it to go less. We don't necessarily need it or want it to go to a 0. We want it to come down 1 or 2 numbers, 3 numbers, 4 numbers, to really prove to the client that a shift has occurred and therefore change is happening. And it's something that just happened in 20 minutes, really, really quickly. And that will prove to them that if this is working, then we can start to chip away at other bigger problems. So again, the aim is to deactivate the intensity of that belief, shrinking it down, blinking it black and white, doing all of the fun things so that the willpower is taken out of it. So this is the list in the NLP practitioner training. You would see me go through very quickly. You know, if I've got the client there who's wanting to get rid of chips, okay, get in touch with the picture of the chips. Is the picture color in black and white, near or far, bright or dim, the location, the auditory, where is the sound of chips? What direction is it moving? Is it loud? Is it soft? Is there any uniqueness? The kinesthetic. You know, when you think of chips, where do you feel that in the body? Oh, it's in my heart space, or it's whatever, it's in my hands. What's the size of that feeling? What's the intensity of that feeling? Is there any hot or cold, any weight? And what do you say to yourself when you think of chips? So they're the submodality list that you get in your NLP practitioner training. And of course, you do that again with the dislike, and then you map it across. Now, in NLP Master Practitioner, we actually shorten this. So instead of the submodalities being a list of 20 or so, we can start teaching masters how to do this conversationally with about 3 or 4. But you have to know this stuff first before you can start to recognize what you can take away. And of course, yeah, you can do this process for boredom, procrastination to feeling motivated and inspired. You can do this from feeling, oh, I'm not sure why it's going blurry there. Anyway, some modalities. And you can do this process to help somebody feel more energetic in their business. And you can do this with money, of course. There's no lack of money. It's only a belief and a choice. And so some modality belief change, you could do this and it will make a wow of a difference. So this is the video here on like to dislike. If you want to know more and want to really dive deep into how to do this process effectively, come join me for my next NLP practitioner training. We have a wow of a time when it comes to like to dislike. It's a lot of fun, and it just takes the ease in changing people's beliefs. Like, wow, this stuff works. How can it get any better? I'm Claire Chancellor from Be Your Purpose Coaching, and I'll talk to you later.